Welcome to the SwimSwam Breakdown. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you today from my mom's house in Columbia, Missouri. We are joined by SwimSwam Editor-in-Chief Braden Keith from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and SwimSwam writer Ben Dornan from Ottawa, Ontario.
Did you know that Ottawa is the capital of Canada?
Capital City.
I sure didn't, Braden. Just learned that this morning.
Capital City.
Braden informs me that an easy way to think of it is Ottawa is like DC. It is the capital of Canada, while Toronto is like New York. New York's not a capital though.
It's the biggest city.
It's the biggest city in the state. Well,
okay.
And Vancouver is Los Angeles.
Coleman is really good.
We can
with
all agree on
geography, thanks to practicing pancakes. You still got to get them up north of the border a little more.
Never been to Canada to film a practice, and that's why I know nothing about it. Midseason is upon us. Week 1 of midseasons are starting today, as a matter of fact, for some of the meets. And I think the bulk of them will start tomorrow. I am most excited for the Tennessee invite. There will be a plethora of good teams there, but we will also get to see them score it like a dual meet. So the 5 or 6 teams that are in attendance there, maybe it's even 7, will all be going head to head to head to head to head to head to head, and it will be scored as such, which I think is a super novel way to do an invite because it will affect how many swimmers you can get into A, B, and C finals.
Look, I like the idea behind it. I understand the idea behind it. I think it's super complicated, but also nobody really ever pays attention to invite scoring. So maybe it doesn't really matter that much. The coaches think that it's going to force people to swim faster in prelims, but whoever doesn't win is still going to come out of it saying, "Oh, it's just an invite. The score doesn't matter." So whatever. I get that. Tennessee invite has the number 1 women's team, has a lot of good teams. I am going NC State invite, the Wolfpack invite, as my most interesting, mostly because I think we will learn the most at that meet, relevant to the NCAA championships. You know, we know Virginia's going to probably win the women's NCAA title, even though the CSCAA made us all vote them number 2 in this week's poll. Spoiler alert. The NC State, Stanford, Arizona State are all kind of in that 4 to 7 range. So I think that's interesting. I think seeing what the new look Stanford women and Claire Curzan look like, I think that makes it interesting to me. When you're looking ahead to March, the Wolfpack invite is, I think, where we're going to learn the most. I think the Tennessee invite will see at least 1 NCAA record, though. So if records are your thing, definitely go Tennessee.
I'm most excited to watch the Georgia invite. Florida and Georgia are going to be the headliners there, of course, along with Auburn, FSU, and Georgia Tech. I think Georgia and Florida on the men's side are both teams that have obviously been at the top of the NCAA in the past, have produced some of the best swimmers that are currently pros. But I don't think that either of those programs, the Georgia men or the Florida men, were peaking last year at all. And I think the 2 storylines this year are how Georgia is going to do without Jack, now that they have 2 head coaches, one for the men's team, one for the women's team, Jack Bauerle, their former head coach. They got off to a pretty good start earlier this season, and they've already faced off Georgia and Florida this year. And at least on the men's side, Georgia came out on top. So seeing if Georgia can keep up their momentum this season will be interesting. Florida side, Josh Leando continuing to race, continuing to stay undefeated if he can. He's one of the many people undefeated this season, I'm pretty sure. And he swam at the World Cup, did well there. And then I think he missed a meet that Florida was racing at that weekend when he was in Toronto, but he'll be back now.
On that note, who do you guys think will remain undefeated through midseason? We published an article saying that there are at least 17 swimmers from top 25 teams in the NCAA that are currently undefeated through midseason. Give me a couple of your best picks of who you think will remain in that status through this weekend. I'm going with Maggie McNeil for sure, who is competing for LSU. She's competing at the Art Adamson invite, where Texas A&M, Washington State, USC, Alabama. So she'll have honestly a surprising amount of stout competition, but I do not think anyone's going to be that particularly close. The Alabama sprint corps could challenge her in the 50 or 100 free if that's what she decides to swim. But if she does like 100 fly, 100 back double or something like that, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to get close to her.
What about Jasmine Nocentini at Northwestern? I think she was probably one of the more surprising names on this list, and she's swimming at the Purdue Invite, where she's going to see Louisville. But does Louisville have sprinters? They've got Gabby Albiero. They've got a few sprinters. She could stay undefeated.
Gretchen Walsh, hard yes. I think
Jets.
That's one of the easiest ones.
Emma Walsh could lose to a teammate, though.
She could, but
I don't never know what they're going to do.
I don't know if I see it. Yeah, a lot of these, it's kind of it's a little misleading because a lot of them are in off events at dual meets where their competition wasn't particularly stout. Kasper Stokowski dropped a 420 in the 500 free versus Kentucky. Honestly, that's surprising. Does he have a third event? Does he swim like the 50 free? I predict he will stay undefeated because he'll only swim backstrokes. Headed on to our next topic, the ISL, which we love talking about on this show. Obviously, lately, things have not looked very good for the ISL, given what's happening across the pond in Ukraine with the war in Russia. But is this an opportunity for them if they choose to seize it? Braden, you wrote a pretty neat article about it. What do you think? Is the ISL going to make a comeback?
I think it will. From talking to people through the grapevine, it seems like Ben Allen is pretty much running the show right now there. And he's the new guy, and I think he's got a lot of passion for it. I think it sounds like he's also sober about the position they're in, both financially and trust in the marketplace and all of these other things. So I think he understands that the next season will not be a giant step forward from the last season. I don't have a quote from him saying that, but just talking to people who have spoken to him, and again, he hasn't responded to us when we have reached out. I do think he understands that he's got to take a deep breath, take a step back, and figure out a plan going forward. So I think they'll give it another try. I don't know if it'll be any more or less successful than the last round was, but I do think that they will give it another try.
Yeah, Braden, I really like Braden's article about it, and I think it kind of articulated the many problems really well. And one thing that I just can't stop thinking about anytime I think about the ISL is how the streaming is what I think is such an easy fix. Like the ISL started when I was in my undergrad and I was swimming there, and I am from Canada. And so every time there was an ISL meet, I was tuned in and I was excited about it because I was writing about it. But all of my teammates, whenever I would say, there's an ISL meet, do you guys want to watch, or are you going to watch? They'd say, yeah, how do I watch it? And I would say, well, you have to Google CBC ISL meet 4 day 2, and then scroll down in the browser and press it. And that's Canada, that's CBC. And I know that the comment section on all of our articles was, does anyone have a link for this country? What VPN are you using? And like, no one in swimming has figured this out. I don't think that FINA has a good streaming system. I don't think USA Swimming does, except for Swimming Australia, who has their high level meets on Amazon Prime, and anyone with a Prime subscription, which is anyone in the world right now, can look up the meet and play it. And I think that streaming is obviously the future of content in the movie world and the TV world. And I think it's in the sports world too. I think the NFL this season just started putting their games on Prime. I think Thursday night, is that a thing? Thursday night football? Mm-hmm. I don't know. One of the nights they put on Prime.
And a few college football conferences are signing in streaming deals.
Yeah. And one of the sports that Braden mentioned in his article was Ultimate Frisbee. And I play Ultimate Frisbee less competitively than I've ever played swimming. But one of my old teammates is like a high-level Ultimate Frisbee player. And she had a game, and I just looked it up, and it was streaming on YouTube, this world game, national, whatever thing. And so I think that there are just so many options for getting online, and the ISL wants 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds to tune in, and and 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds know how to use streaming. They know how to log on to Amazon Prime. And it just seems so easy. If they can get it on a website where you just have to look up ISL and it starts playing the meet, I think that's like,
well, it's kind of funny that they haven't gone to that model. Maybe they just couldn't work out the finances on it, but they talk about wanting to be a league, and yet their television solution is CBS on air at 11 o'clock in the morning. Like it's a legacy television solution. And the inability for people to find it is kind of, this was an ongoing conversation we had with ISL. We said to them, guys, we talk to the audience. We know what the audience is looking for. The audience can't find any of it on your website. It should be the lowest hanging fruit. The audience had to come to us to find out the ISL standings. The audience had to come to us to find the schedule, the MVP scoring, the results, all of these things that should just fundamentally be part of a sports league's website. Should be the easiest thing in the world. If you go to ESPN.com or NBA.com, there are 15 different ways to figure out how to watch a game on TV because that's what they want you to do. And so you've got to clean that stuff up. And I think that's what's frustrating for us at SwimSwam. It's not that the league didn't work, right? Or whether the league is or isn't going to work, it doesn't frustrate us. It's when you miss the easiest things to do, the things that somebody could have spent 30 minutes doing and they'd be done and they'd be 100 times better. That's what frustrates us.
Well, I wowould post articles after ISL meets with like record-breaking posts, world record posts, and I would be putting videos from a YouTube channel called Snake Eyes, like, and getting the ad money from those like thousands of views of people watching a world record. Like the ISL wasn't turning around those highlight videos, which is what people who can't watch live, they want the highlight videos and they want to see Caleb Dressel break a world record.
Well, and it seemed like they started to get it with the Lily King disqualification because they did post that video, not right away, but they eventually did post it, and that got a ton of traffic. That was more ISL traffic than we saw on anything else by a factor of 10. And so I think they kind of maybe started to get it there, or at least they had a data point that should have allowed them to get it. But then Ukraine happened and everything went off the rails. So we'll see if they remember that lesson whenever the next season happens.
Moving on to more short course meters swimming. David Popovici competed at Romanian Nationals. I guess there was other competitors there too. He wasn't swimming by himself, but he was one of the highlights. I am curious as to which swim you were most impressed by the 18-year-old 100-meter freestyle world record holder.
I'm going to break the rules here, and I'm not going to answer the question because to me, the most impressive thing and the thing that people need to pay attention to is the number of records that were broken behind him. All three women's backstroke national records were broken by Isia Prisicariu, whose name I'm definitely butchering. She broke all three women's backstroke national records. She's only 14. The women's 50 breaststroke record was broken. The women's 100 IM record was broken. Like he is the front edge of a wave. And we've seen this in other countries. We saw this in Turkey a few years ago. We saw it in Italy before that. But he seems to be the front edge of a wave of young talent that is coming through Romania. And at a short course national championship meet where, based on the selection procedures and who they're taking and who they're not taking, it's not clear they were actually putting a whole lot of effort into selecting a world championship team. I think, to me, the most important thing to pay attention to is the talent behind him, because he had some good swims, but none of them really shattered the earth the way his long course swims did.
Yeah, I think for me, it was probably his 100 freestyle, just because that was a national record and a best time. He went a 46.62 in the 100 freestyle. But his other swims were fine for where he is right now. I'm sure he's very deep into training in October. 52.67 100 fly, 53.47 100 IM, and 3.43 400 free. Those were solid, like, in season times. But just comparing them to World Cup swims, he wouldn't have been winning those events or shattering any records. So I think it was just good to see that he was racing at home, and I think the fact that he wasn't doing world record breaking swims just shows that he's training a lot right now. And he mentioned in his interviews that he's going to short course world. So that's definitely going to be his focus for this fall.
Are we convinced enough by those swims, even if we say, oh, he's in training, are we convinced enough by those swims that to change our opinion that Kyle Chalmers is the heavy favorite at Short Course Worlds and Popovici is second, maybe third in that conversation in spite of being the long course world record holder?
Chalmers is my favorite to win the 100 freestyle. Yes.
Because Matt Richards, the same or a week before Popovici, swam faster in the 100 free, also in heavy training. So,
and Popovici kind of said, like, I'm not used to short course meters. And kind of delicately said, I don't really care about short course meters. Like he's a long course world record holder, so I kind of get that. And he kind of said in some interviews that were in the article, like, this is fun. I'm going to go swim fast at short course worlds, but I'm excited to get into the long pool this summer.
I think he has a pretty legitimate shot to win the 200 free, depending on how much he focuses for short course worlds. But I just don't think the speed and the skills are there in the 100 freestyle. I think he could go 45 mid. I don't think that's going to be enough to beat Kyle. That is our news for the week, and now it's time to play some Sink or Swim. First up today on Sink or Swim, I talked to Bella Sims after her 2 World Junior records in 12-minute excursion at the Indy World Cup. She's going to Winter Juniors. That is their focus meet for the winter fall. And I'm curious if you think that I'm going over under on this one. Bella Sims breaks 1.5 NAGS at Winter Juniors in Austin.
The problem is when you start looking through the list of national age group records for 17, 18 girls, like it's a stacked
really fast
list. Simone Manuel, it's Katie Ledecky, it's Claire Curzan, it's Reagan Smith. If there is a soft stroke, it's breaststroke, which is, I guess, not Bella's best stroke, but like the way the Sandpipers work, if she just showed up and swam some breaststroke and broke a national age group record, I don't think we can be like all that surprised by it. And by soft, I mean, there's still, I shouldn't even say soft because there's still stupid fast records. Like 57.7 is a 100 breast record by Caitlin Dobler. It's just a record that was swum by somebody who doesn't have like Olympic and world championship gold medals. But it's still a super fast record. So to me, I am going to sink it, not because I don't think she's going to have a great meet. I just think those records are stupid fast, and I think she could get one. Like I think she could show up and get the maybe get Claire's 100 fly record, or maybe get she's not gonna get Ledecky's records. 49 500 back, 140. She's not going to go 147.1 in the 200 back. Yeah, I'm going to go under. I think she could sneak in one, but I can't see 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go under 2. I accidentally looked at the some of the long course records for this, and I was thinking, like, she just broke 2 World Junior records. How could she not get national age group records? But some of the World Junior records were a lot more vulnerable than the U.S. national age group records in short course meters, because obviously Ledecky and Reagan Smith and Claire Curzan weren't racing short course meters when they were breaking those national age group records. So,
and you can also be older and have a national age group record than a world junior record for girls. There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go under 2. I'm assuming relays don't count because who knows if they can break some relays, those Sandpiper.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking relays. And for that reason, I'm going under as well. I think relays, I think they have a pretty legitimate shot, especially this 707 and the women's or the girls 800 free relay. That is definitely vulnerable if they throw together their best shot. But individually, I thought I would go over before I looked at the list of NAGs, and then I realized how stout that was. Go Bella, but I got to take the safe money on this one. Next up, fans voted for Tomoru Honda's 200 fly world record as the most impressive short course meters record of the season so far. Do you agree with said fans? Between him, Katie Ledecky's 1500 record, and Li Bingji's 400 free record. Sink or swim, Tomoru Honda, most impressive record so far.
Sink. I think that Li Bingji was the most impressive, because if Li Bingji just did that record and then Katie Ledecky didn't race at all, I think that maybe it wouldn't have been. But we saw Li Bingji break a record, and then we saw Summer McIntosh and Katie Ledecky go head to head, which was an incredible race between those two. And they were clearly both going for that record, and they both wanted it. And then we saw Katie Ledecky break a world record, which the 1500 world record was definitely a soft record because Ledecky had never raced it. But she was going fast enough to break a short course world record, and she still didn't go as fast as Li Bingji did. And I know Ledecky.
Yeah, but you're comparing Ledecky off in full training versus Lee in a taper meet.
But was that a taper meet? I don't know. We don't know.
Well, it was a championship meet.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I hate arguing about whether something was a taper meet or not, but it was certainly a championship meet and a selection meet.
Yeah, I just think that. But I mean, Katie Ledecky is one of the best swimmers in history. I think that for Li Bingji to be faster than Katie Ledecky, even when Katie Ledecky is still training, and Li Bingji, whether or not she tapered, I think that that's still really impressive. It's just the fact that Ledecky was going pretty fast, and her and Summer were pretty close to that record. And I think that the fact that Li Bingji racing no one, I'm assuming, I don't know who came second in that race, but I'm sure
she was racing no one.
She was racing no one.
Again, more things I will debate you over whether racing people is actually better. I know people like to say that it is. I don't think it is. I'm swimming it. I think that beating Diaceto's record from a world championship meet by a second and a half is just super impressive. And that was peak Diaceto in 2018. He was really grooving. He looked like he would be, maybe take down a Phelps record, blah, blah, blah. I think doing that by a second and a half, I can't ignore that. So I'm swimming that's the most impressive record.
One thing you're wrong about, peak Diaceto is not 2018. Peak Diaceto is 2024.
I have to swim that as well. I think the gravity of him breaking that by that much, I was going to say peak Dia as well. He broke the 4IM at ISL the next year. It's like Dia was on one for sure at that time. And for Honda to just come in and totally smash it can't be ignored. Speaking of short course meter world records, Grant Hackett is now on the record saying his 14-year-old short course meter world record in the men's 800 free will go down at his home short course world championships in Melbourne. Sink or swim, Hackett's record gets broken.
So Grant Hackett, his world record is 723. Next closest is Yannick Agnel, 729. Greg Paltrineri is 730. He's probably not at his peak in pool swimming right now. He's just taking over open water. Henrik Christensen, 730. Federico Colbertado, 731. Like, nobody has been close to this record. And I think the way the 800 free long course world record went down in 2008 and the fact that nobody's gotten close to it maybe says something about the 800 free. I don't know if anybody's really come up training for the 800 free now that it's an Olympic event, but I think that's what it's going to take for this record to go down. I don't see Florian Wellbrock dropping 9 seconds and breaking this record. I mean, he's Mikhailo Romanchuk dropping 8 seconds and breaking this record. It could happen. I don't see it. So I'm going to sink it.
Yeah, I'm going to sink it too. I don't know what, maybe he was just hyping up the meet. I don't know what made him say this, but like the fastest 800 free this season is.
He was just hyping up the meet.
Yeah.
he was, that's literally his job now, right? He works in the administration there.
I mean, 735 is 13 seconds faster. And obviously no one, if someone's going to break the record, they probably wouldn't have gotten near it this early in the season, but I just can't think of anyone who I think is going to be at Short Course Worlds and is going to have a serious chance of breaking that record. So I'm going to think it. Maybe Logan Fontaine. Logan Fontaine, number 1 in the world right now. Remember the name? I don't know. Maybe.
I'm swimming it. I disavow Braden's theory of racing doesn't help break world records. I think the Europeans are going to get into a death match. It'll be Greg, it'll be Mikhailo, and it'll be Florian. And one of those three will come out on top by inches at 7:22.99.
Didn't we see them get into a death match at Long Course Worlds and it just Greg screwed up everybody's race pacing and everybody was kind of slow?
I'm thinking of the time when Greg just sprinted out of lane 8 and won the mile. He went really fast.
Yeah,
but
he
no one
went really
else did.
fast, but nobody else did.
Well,
So
no. Yeah, I'm not
I don't
talking
think a
about
death
that.
match is gonna lead to a world record. I think a death match throws off the pacing in a distance race.
Although I am realizing now that Florian Wellbrock did break the 1500 freestyle world record at last year's short course worlds. So I don't know. Maybe
He wasn't in a death match. I think half now it was like significantly behind him. He went really. I remember half now. I went 14-10.
He broke a world record without competition.
That doesn't mean that every world record gets broken without competition.
Huh. Wow.
Death match. European.
I'm leading 1-0. So
next up on Sink or Swim, 13-year-old Delaney Barbee split 21-5 anchoring her 200 medley relay. 21-5. 13 years old. I'm going to just let that sink in for a minute. To further emphasize this point, she's swimming at the Candy Cane Classic this weekend. Her flats...
Not this weekend, in December, but that'll be her big taper meet.
My mistake. Her flat start best is 23.7 in the 50-yard freestyle. Sink or swim, she hits 22.5 or better flat start at said Candy Cane Classic.
I am protesting this sink or swim because I just think people doubting this is silly. I think first of all, people are taking it way too seriously, right? Like we never know if relay splits are legit or not. We never, ever know that because they're not entered in official times databases. There's no backup timer on a relay split. So it's always just for fun. And I think it's a ridiculous conversation that like what kind of a head coach of a good sized club team is going to set up their best talent for failure by insisting that his watch matched the clock. He says she went a 21-4, 21-5, and then having her show up at her taper meet and go 23-2. Like that, no coach is going to do that. We get for every one coach that brings us a swim from a 13-year-old, we get 10 who say, I'd really rather not have anybody talk about my 13-year-old star swimmer. Like I'm shielding them from all of that. So I don't know. I am protesting this. I think she did her 21-5 relay anchor. I think the preponderance of the evidence says she did. We're never going to have an answer because there was no video. But some of the arguments against it, like the 25 free, she dove off the wall. So I don't think you can use that as a legitimate data point to disprove the 21-5.
So you're not sinking or swimming.
I am not. And I can do that because I'm in charge.
All right.
I invented this game. I will kill this game if I have to.
I'm sinking it because I don't think she's been under 24. I was just looking up her times. I don't think she's been under 24 yet this season after three.
She hasn't swum it this season. Did you read the SwimSwam article?
She has swum it this season. She's raced the 50 free 3 times in October. She went a 24-9, a 24-4, and a 24-2.
Are you sure those aren't splits on the front end of a 100 free?
I'm not sure about that, no.
Did you look them up in SwimCloud?
Yeah, that's where I found them.
They have little X's next to them?
If she took her 100 free out in 24s, that's 13-year-olds are crazy, man.
I don't have her SwimCloud open anymore. But I'm still going to sink it. I don't know. I think 23 is the best time. I don't think that this is like a situation where her entire life is now going to revolve around the Candy Cane Classic, and this is like the only thing she's going to think about, and she's going to win this magical 22 or 21 50 free.
So you don't think that a 13-year-old can drop 1.2 seconds in a year from a non-taper meet to a taper meet?
No,
She was 23.7 essentially as a 12-year-old.
Sounds like
sink it or swim it, Braden.
Like 2 weeks after she turned 13. Or I don't know how many weeks, a few weeks after she turned 13.
One interesting data point is that she had a huge best time in her 50 backstroke at the meet in October, or at this meet, the meet that she did this crazy split. She went a 28.39, and her best time before that was a 29.3. So that kind of leads me to believe that maybe she could in the 50 free. She was a bit slower than her best time in the 100 free. So, the numbers are conflicting.
Fine, I'm going to have to do it. I'm swimming it. This is happening. She started this meet wanting to swim because it was her little sister just got into swimming and she wanted to go. and be there as support, and because she thought it'd be cool to swim with her little sister. She got to the end of this meet and she was giving some incentive and she punched the gas. She's going to go 22.5 at the Candy Cane Classic.
We should do a live watch along for this Candy Cane.
We should.
100%. Probably be the most watched meet in SwimSwam history.
I'm sinking it. It's gotten too much attention. The media has ruined it for her. The commenters have ruined it for her. She's going to have too much pressure. She's going to go 22.6.
I'm going to shut down SwimSwam if you guys can't stop ragging on 13-year-olds.
I think
I'm not ragging on her. I'm blaming us. We're the problem. I'm just kidding. The commenters are the problem.
Shout out to Delaney Barbee. I love that name also. Very fun name.
That is a great name.
Also, I think 2 more years where she could go for Claire Curzan's 21-89 national age group record. So are we thinking we're swimming that?
That's not part of the sink or swim. We'll get there when she gets to 22.5. Last up on sink or swim, Luca Urlando is now confirmed to be getting shoulder surgery. He's out for the remainder of the NCAA season. To be fair, he's not the defending NCAA champion in the men's 200 fly. Brendan Burns of Indiana who's a senior this year. But he was just 0.11 away from said 200 fly title. And I'm just curious as to your predictions of who will be winning this year's men's 200 fly at the NCAAs.
So let's set the field. Last year, Brendan Burns is a junior, 138.7. Gabe Jett from Cal as a freshman, 140.2. Alexander Colson from Arizona State, 140.9. As a junior, I don't think Mason Wilby came back.
Is Ivanov finished? Because he was in the B final, but swam
Ivanov was a senior. I kind of think he came back.
I think he did.
Yeah, I think it's a two-swimmer race. I think it's Brendan Burns and Gabe Jett. I think everybody else, you can never count anybody out because then you're a hater, you're biased, blah, blah, blah. I think it's a two-swimmer race. It's Brendan Burns and it's Gabe Jett. I think Brendan Burns is 138.7. I think that was close to his best. I think Gabe Jett is on a massive trajectory upward. He hasn't swum the 200 fly this year, right? Didn't we talk about that last week? I don't think he's raced it this year. So maybe they're just going to cede the title to Brendan. So to me, it's down to, can Gabe make up that 1.5 second gap quickly enough to catch Brendan? I think his trajectory is through the ceiling. So I'm going to take Gabe Jett.
I'm going to take Brendan Burns just because he is that reigning champion and he's been swimming pretty well this season. And he will have a good race against Gabe Jett. And I think that will definitely propel him forward because racing fast people makes you swim faster. But I think that there are 2 people that we haven't talked about. And one is Hubert Koch. I don't know how to say his last name. And he is an IMer. He's the European long course champion in the 200 IM from last year or earlier this year.
Freshman that's joining Arizona State at the semester. Yeah,
he just finished the World Cup and he's going to Arizona. I think now he's not going to short course worlds. He's going to swim the 2 IM and the 4 IM and he'll be competitive in those. But I don't fully know what his third event will be. And if it's the 200 fly, I feel like he has a good chance. I think his short course time was actually similar to what Burns swam at the Indiana World Cup. They were around the same when they both swam it this season. So that kind of tells me that he might do you know how to say it? Koch? I don't know.
Probably somewhere in between those 2 things, but Koch would be the closest Anglican equivalent.
Yeah, he's definitely a butterflyer and a backstroker as well. He races a bounty of events on the international stage. So he could be one to watch. And his teammate, Leon Marchand, you never know what he's going to race. So if he does enter the 200 fly, he's raced it long course and has had success. So I don't know, maybe they're going to start training the 200 fly together, the 200 IMs, and one of them will enter it and could cause some chaos. But I think considering that's an unknown, I'm going to go with Burns as he's the reigning champion. And yeah,
you guys are haters because you don't talk about everyone. So I'm talking about everyone. NC State's Aiden Hayes. He was 14th last year as a freshman. He was 140.6 in prelims. I think he's going to have a massive drop. he's gonna give Gabe Jett and Brendan Burns a run for their money, because in the end, it's all about who can perform at the end of the meet. And I think
you can't
NC
call me an
State
Aiden Hayes hater because I picked him to win the 100 fly preseason.
Did you?
You can't call me a hater.
Wow.
I either picked him or I said he's like my upset special. I don't remember which.
Nice. All right. Well, that's the breakdown for this week. That is your week's news in swimming, and tune in every week to the SwimSwam Breakdown to stay up to date on your swimming news.